Monsters University, we give our hearts to you. We want you to be proud of us wherever we may do. Wherever children are dreaming, we'll bring them nightmares too. From Monsters University, alma mater, we love you. Monsters of the world, can you hear the call? At Monsters University, you're welcome, one and all. Monsters University, Monsters University, first in terror, first in fear, we're awfully glad we're here. Monsters University, we never will forget the golden years we spent with you and the monsters that we met. No matter where life takes us, your light will come shining through. Oh, Monsters University, alma mater, hail to you.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gootz's Disney Pod. I'm your host, Ray Gootz, and we are now in 2013, and we're going back to college. We're at Monsters University, and with me is one of my favorite comics in New York City. He won 2020's March Comedy Madness. I don't care what anyone says. Give it up for Comedy Pete Burdette. What's up, Comedy Pete?
What's up, Ray Gootz? Thank you for that flying endorsement. I want to argue with you about that, but I'm not gonna. I'll take it. I'll take the W.
Well, listen, March Madness never ended. There's not going to be a 2021. But you know what? I booked the thing, and then they banned me. So fuck it. I'm calling it. There's no rules left. You won. I don't give a shit. And you won this year, too. Fuck them.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. Yeah, but I'm a winner by default until society, reconvenes.
Yeah. Or until it completely collapses and we're all
One or the other.
doing shows in shanty towns like those apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, comedy, how long have you been doing stand-up, buddy?
Well, the short answer is, we're in 21 now. So I started, wow, this is ironic, 2013. Since we're going back to 2013, I was 42 at the time. I don't like to mention my age too much, but it's not a big deal. We're amongst friends here.
Yeah.
I was 42 that year. And, for a lot of years, Ray, I was, wanting to do it. And, I had friends that, wrote down some info. Oh, go to this open mic, New York Comedy Club, blah, blah, blah. And every week I was like, oh, I'm going to go this week. And then I forgot about it and got caught up with other things. So I never did get the cojones to say, all right, I'm going to the club this week, New York Comedy Club. That was the one I was kind of fixated on, just because that's what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
I never did get the guts to go, which I'm not proud to say. It's not a great story.
Yeah, but you performed there since, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. Okay, the way you said, I didn't have the guy. Like, you never even walked in there yet. Still to this day, let's go there right now.
I'm still terrified of.
Yeah.
No. But I hang out. As you know, like yourself, I'm from Queens. I'm at the other end of Queens from you. I'm in Glendale, Queens, and I hang out at Your Man's Irish Pub, which used to be the famous Cooper's Ale House, as seen on King of Queens and all that. So I used to hang out there and do a lot of karaoke. I love my 80s pop songs and all that stuff, and Beach Boys and whatnot. Again, long story short, there was a group of young, kids in their 20s started hanging out at karaoke, and they wanted to form a comedy troupe. They talked to the owner, Jimmy O'Reilly, and said, hey, if you have a slow night, maybe we can do an open mic night. And I mentioned to one of the guys, says, oh, I've always wanted to try it. And it was like that, you got to do it. Next week we're doing it. So I was put in a position, Ray, where I look like a wuss if I didn't do it. So what I'm saying is, if it hadn't come to my backyard, I don't know if I ever would have started.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
you did the open mic the next week. That was your first time up.
it was my first time, like, getting on stage. I mean, I had audited actually, I did audit a class at a New York comedy club with Chris Murphy, and actually I have a picture from that. But I never did a proper. That was in 2008, actually. So,
Okay.
but it wasn't an open mic, and where I just like faced my fears. So I did the open mic, and it went well. You know how they say, for some reason you got dumb luck, you do well the first time,
Mhm.
and then the second time, you think like, I got this, and then you fall flat on your face. That actually did happen to me at Your Man's, but the first time was so good. People were a little surprised because, like, I was doing a little off the wall, dark kind of jokes, and it was like, "What? Nice guy Pete?" So that was a factor too. Um, so that's, for like 2 years, 2013, 2014, I was just doing a lot of, open mics at Your Man's. I knew Stacy Pressman
Mhm.
somewhat. I'd seen her perform, and I knew some friends that she knew. So through her, I got to know Evan Weiss, and Evan, he got me to do my first show at Broadway Comedy Club. This is the first time I ever. This is 2014.
Okay.
First time I ever stood on a stage, like the dream was to, be like Jerry Seinfeld, with the
Mhm.
brick wall behind me, and microphone in my hand and a crowd. I mean, it was like, I didn't do particularly outstanding on that set, but it didn't even matter. It was like
It's
a
just nice to
religious.
be there.
Yeah, I mean, because for many years as a grown man already, I was going to comedy clubs to see performers, and after the show, I would see the comedians, and they seemed like, even they were like unknown or whatever, but they seemed like celebrities to me.
Yeah.
And so when I did the show, it was like surreal. This is my first time at a club, Broadway Comedy Club, 2014. It was surreal, Ray, after the show, to like have people come up to me and look at me with like a little sparkle in their eye, like, "Wow, you were good. Hey, good job." Because I mean, I was funny. I mean, but it wasn't great, but it was funny enough, and it was just like surreal to be on the other side of that. You know, People, like I'm the big shot comedian, like, and because like I said, I was on the other side of that for so many years. So that was really great. And
Y- Yeah,
from
I
there,
worked at Caroline's for a year before I went up, and it is such a great feeling when you're finally there on the other side. Like, you watch these comics, you just think to yourself, how great would it be to be on stage, and God, that guy looks like he's having a blast, and this looks like so much fun. And then to finally be on the other side, it's like such a great feeling, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I can't stress it enough, right? I mean, it was like, I mean, okay, this might sound a little weird to you. I don't know. I tell this to people sometimes, but you know, again, I got to preface it. Watching comedy all my life, on late night TV. Watching Johnny Carson in the '80s and all the comedians that came on back then, and Letterman, and present day, Colbert and all these guys. The first time after I did my first set, this was at Your Man's, it was a
Mhm.
bar show. When I did my first set, the first time I watched a late night TV set after I, you know, became a comedian, um, it was almost like it was almost a little bit like an out of body experience. Like I felt like I was watching myself. Like wow, I know what it feels like to what that person's doing right now. I know what that feels like to stand in front of a crowd. It was very like interesting to, after all those years, to see it from a different perspective, and it really was like some kind of baptism of the soul or
Mhm.
something. Like I really, Jerry. I keep quoting Jerry Seinfeld, and he is an idol. He said once, he goes, anybody, if you hold a microphone in your hand and tell jokes to a crowd, make a crowd laugh even once, you're in the club.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, you're in the club with Richard Pryor and Louis C.K. and everybody. I know it's a touchy subject with you and the tripod. I need
Yeah,
to bring up
son of
the
a bitch. Who cares about that jerking off shit? He didn't break anything in their house when he did it. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, he didn't damage private property. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like after he jerked off, he like broke their TV. Ah, there you go. Like,
Hey,
hey,
so I had to do the rim shot.
that's all
I
right.
got
Hey, that's what we're about here. No, Louis C.K. No. Yeah. I mean, you know, by the way, I've blown my mind. I've learned over this past week that a lot of comics that are pretty big have never seen Seinfeld. They're doing Seinfeld watch along podcasts. And I'm just like, how the fuck did you like when I was a kid, I wanted to do stand-up. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget the promos for Seinfeld. I saw promos for it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna check that out. And I watched it, the premiere. I watched it. I was playing my wrestling cards, but I watched it. And I'm just like, how did you want to do stand-up? You never even like took a peek at Seinfeld, you know?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that doesn't even like. I mean, there's a lot of things by now, Ray, that like younger comedians like. Even
Well,
even if they
these are
say,
guys like close to my age, yeah, which is crazy.
even if they say they don't. Let's just say that. Oh, I never heard of Richard Pryor. Let's just say they say that. I mean, as outrageous as that seems, I almost can get that. Like, all right, his peak was in the 70s and 80s. Maybe it makes sense that but Jerry Seinfeld is like, the 90s weren't that long ago,
Yeah.
and he's hardly a has been. I mean, he's puts out stuff and he's still very prominent person in showbiz. You know what I mean? So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, just like when you're younger. I mean, if you have any interest in stand up, that's the first show I would think you would go to watch because it's the. I mean, it's not now that I'm a comic. It's not a very realistic depiction of life as a comedian, but it's still like the only show where this guy is basically working as a comedian. You know?
Yeah. I mean, those are like the the first of his kind. But wow. I mean, by now I'm not surprised that
People have no sense of history, but we'll get into that in a second. Speaking of history, let's talk about your childhood. I know you said Disney wasn't a big part of your childhood, but what was your childhood like growing up there in Glendale? And what TV shows and movies? What were we into as a young comedy Pete?
Yeah, well, I mean, Disney movies. I mean, I watched, Disney. But I watched like Disney movies back then, the stuff that aired on TV, and like Black Stallion and stuff like that. This
Yeah.
is way before like Touchstone or obviously Pixar movies and all that. Just like the old classics like Fantasia and stuff. But anyway, getting back to TV shows. I mean, I was born in '71, early. I just had a birthday the other day actually, and like the classic stuff, Happy Days, like Welcome Back, Kotter.
I love that show.
Yeah, I mean, but the Love Boat, Chips. I mean, you name any iconic show like between 1975 and 1985, and that like can I say a bad word?
Yeah. This is for adult. This podcast I think is mainly but no kids are watching this listening to this.
Just double check. Anything between 75 and 85 was my shit.
Yeah.
And like I would say, maybe Happy Days, the Fonz. I mean, I have a couple old pictures of myself wearing like Fonzie t-shirts or Fonzie sweatshirts. I mean, I was very much idolize the Fonz, and so I guess Henry Winkler was at the at the nucleus of my childhood TV obsession. Brady Bunch. I mean, God, I mean, and I knew you were like an '80s baby, an '80s kid. I was like a '70s baby. I love the children's show. Sid and Marty Krofft. Was that still running into the '80s? I wasn't.
No. The '80s. There wasn't a lot of live action. There was Kid Video, which nobody talks about anymore. That was live action. That was like they were trapped in like music videos. I don't know if you ever saw that show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I saw some of it. I mean, when
nobody.
the '80s started, yeah.
Nobody seems to remember that. But there was no live action shows on Saturday morning until Pee-wee's Playhouse, and then Saved by the Bell, which nobody talks about. Saved by the Bell killed the Saturday morning cartoon. It killed it dead.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Well,
that's interesting.
What happened was they were making so much money on Saved by the Bell, and the ratings were so high that after there were 2 seasons of it, and it was after the cartoons. And then they were like, well, if we're making so much money and this is so much cheaper to make than like these fucking cartoons, let's just make the whole morning into fucking teen shows. So 19, I'll never forget a day that lives in infamy. Fall 1992, NBC dropped the cartoons and they put Saturday Today, and then right after that was Saved by the Bell, California Dreams, and a bunch of other shows. And I like Saved by the Bell, but like, oh man, I loved NBC. To me, had the best cartoons, and they were the first ones to get rid of them. And then that's where we are right now. There's nothing on Saturday mornings hardly, you know.
Yeah, I feel you. That's a traumatic, for the network to just pull the plug. But then again, if you're like 11 or 12-year-old boy, Kelly Kapowski's not a bad trade for morning cartoons.
Oh
Right?
no, there was a hot Asian girl that no one talks about in California Dreams. And then I think it was another show, City Guys and Hang Time. I didn't watch those, but yeah, that was the death of Saturday morning cartoons. But yeah, Kelly Kapowski she still looks good. She could gain a little weight.
Yeah. Wow,
you can't
great,
fucking.
yeah.
No one's 17 forever.
That's true. But just to finish my thought about the 70s, so I grew up on shows like Land of the Lost. I'm talking about the children's programming, the Sid and Marty Krofft, H&R Puff and stuff, the Lost Saucer. I mean, these shows had like this low budget and it was funny, but like cheesy stuff. And I love the Saturday morning cartoons in the 70s into the early 80s. I mean, by the early 80s, that was like the end of my cartoon era. By the mid 80s, I was like a teenager, and I was more into like, all the like hard rock and heavy metal bands.
Yeah.
But I guess that's another subject, another time.
Yeah, but yeah, I was born in 81, and I always say I was born the perfect year. If I was born like my parents got married in the 60s, and they're like, "Do you wish you had younger parents?" And I'm like, "No." Because I think my childhood would have sucked growing up in the 60s. Like if my parents had me when the year they got married instead of 81.
What year was that, Ray, if you don't mind me asking?
What year they got married or what year I was born?
Well, I know what year they got married, your parents, in the 60s.
They got married in 61 and I was born in 81.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh, I mean, 61. I mean, I know a lot of people who are older than me that they swear by their 60s childhoods,
I look at like one time I had a TV guide from the 60s and I looked at the lineups. My parents saved old TV guides, and I went through. This was when I was a kid. I was like, oh yeah, what would I have watched? So I'm going through and I'm like, what time do the cartoons start? And there's like an hour. Now I would have fucking killed myself with all these judge shows. I'm like, oh no, I could have. Like, okay, so I got like, okay, I guess I could watch fucking. I'm planning the primetime lineup. Oh, I guess I could get into Green Acres. I never, because that wasn't really on when I was a kid. But it was fun. I was like trying to plot what my day would be like, and I'd be like, no. I'm glad you guys waited until 81 to have me. Holy shit! Like,
no, Ray, I appreciate what you're saying about you feeling you were born like childhood wise at the perfect time. I mean, I like my growing up years, but it's funny. I had a friend of mine, Fred, who suggested to me once. He goes that like you were born at a weird time, like as far as the 80s go. Like I was too young to like be an older guy, like who would go to Fort Lauderdale on spring break and make it with the chicks, to put it nicely. But at the same time, I was too old to like, be part of like, an awesome cartoon renaissance.
Like G.I. Joe.
Yeah. That's exactly what it said to me. So there is something to be said for being born at the right time. If you're a few years off or a few years behind, you're a little off center and you kind of got robbed a little. I'm not saying I don't know if that's totally how I feel about my growing up years, but I do recognize that, like I said, in the 80s, I might have wanted to have been 22 in 1985, hanging out in Fort Lauderdale, or I might have wanted to have been like 7 or 8 watching Transformers.
Well, I would have loved, I'll tell you this, and so what year would I would have loved to have been like 16 to 22 in the mid 80s. I would have loved to have been around when they make, I don't know if this actually happened, but go to those spring break teen movies or something, like Be That Age, or the age who got killed in a Friday the 13th film. I felt like the 80s were a good time to be a teen. So I would have been really into being like 16 around 83. So what year would I have had to have been born if I'm 16 and 83? I'm trying to think. 73. So late 60s I would have had to have been born.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But reason this is the reason why I think I was born the perfect age is because when I was a kid, it just felt like everything was sent like I didn't have cable, but I felt like every channel was centered around me being a kid. There was all these sitcoms. The dramas were kept at 10 o'clock, and that's usually when my parents watched the news. 11 o'clock, there were more sitcoms. In the morning, there were cartoons. Then there was Sesame Street. Then in the afternoon, there were cartoons. And I really feel like when I got older, when I got to 13, 14, there were less cartoons on regular TV. There was more Ricky Lake. There was more Jenny Jones. There was more Judge Judy. And then by the time, I was in high school, I was in high school and we were having lunch and, this girl that I think she was a year younger than me was saying like, oh, my little cousins, they know all about like abortions and because all this stuff because they watch Maury. And then I realized like, yeah, if you don't have cable, your kid's only option back then in like the late 90s was to watch Maury or Jerry Springer, and you're learning about infidelity, you're learning about, fucking without a condom. And it was no longer a kid's world. The TV world, the channel 11s, channel 9s, channel 5s, they had the TMZs, they were catering towards fucking adults even during the day. And I kind of feel like that's unfair to the kids that were like basically like we were latchkey kids. I think you could say that, right? We could say that we're latchkey.
Exactly.
Yeah, the kids who were latchkey kids in the 90s and the 2000s, and the parents couldn't afford cable. They didn't have the fun childhood that we had. They just were told about, who's the baby daddy.
That sucks. That's a real bummer. I was never really aware of that because, by the late 90s, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and early 2000s. So that was under my radar. You know what I mean? I wasn't something that I was aware of or paying attention to. But wow, that makes. I mean, now you make me realize how blessed I was because like I said, in the 70s, they didn't even have cable yet. So thank God that all the great children's programming was on. That's really sad.
It even shows, even like adult shows, adults thing like Benson or fucking Barney Miller. You watch them now, and you're like, these were also like kids. Even Three's Company, kids could learn from these shows. Like I learned about tolerance for gay people in Too Close for Comfort. There was an episode where his best friend revealed he was gay, and Ted Knight and him. Ted Knight's like, I don't care, you're my friend. Same thing with Three's Company. You learn tolerance. You learn things while you're having a laugh, while they're being dirty and in your face, and you're on the floor laughing at all these great actors. And I don't think they have that anymore. You're not, I don't know, fucking, look, I think Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a good show, but it's just, you're not learning anything. You're not like, you know what I mean? You can't like sit down with your son.
I get it. Wow. Yeah. I mean, something really shifted.
Yeah. It's called the Jews. No, I'm joking. Anyway.
Oh,
hey. What were you mentioned Happy Days as being a big part of your childhood. Were you into Facts of Life?
Yeah, I mean, that came 79 spin-off. I know you know this, so I'm just reiterating. Spin-off of Different Strokes. And it's funny, I wasn't really aware of this at the time, but NBC, it's strange to think because in the 80s they became the number one network, but in the late 70s NBC was tanking, and at one point they put all their hopes on Facts of Life being a hit, and it was a moderate hit. It wasn't a blockbuster, but I mean, I remember watching when Molly Ringwald was on, and it's funny, years later, fast forward 5 years later, she's the teen queen of the 80s, and that was weird to me. When Molly Ringwald first, with 16 Candles came out, and also, followed by, Breakfast Club and Pretty Pink, I was like, oh, that's little Molly from Facts of Life from like 79. Like that seemed weird to me at the time that her, of all people, somehow became like the number one teen star.
Well, it's weird to me.
Perspective there.
Yeah, it's weird to me, like looking back, they really did purge after season 1. They purged all the attractive cast members, and I'm not shitting on the 4 girls. I like their chemistry, But
yeah.
the fact that they kept Natalie and got rid of like 2 or 3 gorgeous blondes, I'm like,
Yeah,
that was a choice.
yeah. Yeah, I think I read something about that. There was a decision made, like, you know, with too many pretty girls, like there was nothing interesting to say. But if you just keep one really good
That's
looking
true.
one,
Blair stood out.
yeah, Blair stood out more, and then you have the girl who's maybe considered, not as cute. That would be Natalie, I guess. And Tootie, she was so likable. You had to keep her. Kim Fields, and I remember when Joe debuted, Nancy McKeon. She was a cool chick, and she's from my area.
Every now and then they would dress her up, and you're like, all right, that's an attractive chick. You know what I mean? Every
Yeah,
now and then.
yeah, she was definitely good looking. But yeah, they had her, in blue jeans and
Mhm.
talking tough, and she's from Forest Hills in Queens. I know some friends who grew up with her in the
Oh, I
70s.
thought you meant the character. Okay, yeah, the real her. Okay, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, the real her. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, she was good. The only reason I bring it up is because I was watching Antenna TV, and that was on at 3 o'clock every day, and I'd go for these long walks with my dogs, get some exercise in, and come back, watch Three's Company. They replaced it with One Day at a Time, and I like One Day at a Time, but the show always gave me anxiety. Were you into One Day at a Time when you were a kid?
Well, I mean, I liked it because, I guess I like a lot of kids, a lot of boys at the time. I had like a celebrity crush on Valerie Bertinelli.
Yeah, she was gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. And but even as a kid, I recognized that this was a Norman Lear show. It had a serious theme. It was about a divorced woman raising kids, and which it was a typical Norman Lear commenting on society, and so it was a weird mix of like slapstick humor and progressive like social commentary.
Well, this used to, I think it was on Channel 2 at like 9 in the morning. So we would have it on when I woke up as a little baby at the
Yeah.
reruns. And that show gave me anxiety. And when I was a little kid, and I know why. It's because that fucking one, Mackenzie Phillips, was that a real name?
Yeah.
She's either every episode she's either on drugs, or she's running away, or she got married, or she got pregnant, or she got pregnant while she was on drugs, or she was on drugs and had an abortion, or she had another abortion, or she had a drug-fueled abortion. Like every fucking week there was something. And as a little kid, remember, I don't know anything I'm learning about the world. I'm like, is this what happens when you hit 18? You run away and you get pregnant?
Yeah.
Fucking. Because like, why is she always like upset? Like the other one's cute. Like, why can't it just be about this other one? Valerie Bertinelli.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like the Valerie Bertinelli, the Barbara Cooper character was kind of like, just kind of lightweight, and comedic. And then, I mean, in Mackenzie Phillips,
in real life, she was also on like every drug known to man.
She fucked up in real life. I mean, that was highly publicized at the time. That
I think they fired her. They like publicly fired her. They were like, "Get the fuck out."
And they found her like laying in the gutter practically. It was a sad story. And so yeah, I mean, watching that, I get
that's what I learned. Mackenzie Phillips told me at a very, very early age that some women are more trouble than they're worth. But anyway. But let me get this, and then we'll move on to the movie.
Sure.
Yesterday I came in, and there's an episode, and she's got a dress on. She's like, "Do I look nice? Do I look nice? I feel like my life is over." And it's just like, I don't know if any guys. This is the mom. I don't know if any guys gonna like me. I'm 35. I'm over the hill, and the Dora's like, "You look great for being old," and they're just like shitting on her for being old, and I'm like, 35. Are you out of your fucking? That's old. Like they're just beating in people's heads that your life is over at 35. And I was like, fuck this show. And I put on I think I put on Highway Patrol on MeTV. I was like,
yeah, you're gonna need therapy after one day.
Well, because I always thought she was in her 40s because they went out of her way to make her unattractive.
Yeah,
the mom.
Ray, I watch a lot of shows now, like old shows, and I'll see. I think people like yourself in general look younger these days because I'll see a show and you see a guy who you think is in his like 50s or 60s, and he's like make a reference of, oh, I'm 42, and like, you want to do a spit take,
Yeah.
or 39 or whatever. And so people are looking younger these days, and yeah, it's crazy with the age thing. I
Yeah,
get it.
and like, well, I have a theory about that. We are, and maybe like not your generation, but like my generation. I feel more so than any.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the old days, like, okay, so you grew up in the '60s, so you're a little kid, you watch cartoons, you hit like 12, you stop watching cartoons, you start working, and then you
Yeah.
become a dad, and then you're a dad, and you dress differently, and you wear
Yeah.
suits, and you wear ties, and you don't, your kid goes Yogi Bear, you're like, I watched that when I was a kid, and you just move on when you're dead. I think
Yeah.
my generation, the '80s kids, are the first generation, and I'm guilty for this too. We
Yeah.
don't let go of what we
Mm,
were into as a kid. And you're almost encouraged not to do that anymore. Like,
yeah.
I'm still arguing with people my age about comic books from the 90s. I'm still talking about Star Wars movies. I'm still I'm still collecting toys. I'm still, and and I have to, like, when they put out a new toy at Walmart, you got to get there before you're beaten by other 40-year-old men to get to this toy.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's almost a shift changing where in those old days, yeah, 35 was old. 35, if the Ann Baxter, or the fuck her name was going around bitching and moaning about, Top Cat, they put her in
Yeah.
mental hospital. But
Yeah.
nowadays, she, a 35-year-old woman can have a Tumblr or a blog dedicated to, Lilo and Stitch, and everyone's like, yeah, that's great. Do what you want.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's funny. I always think about it, you could be like somebody's dead now in your 40s, and listen to Taylor Swift, and nobody thinks anything of it, right?
Yeah.
But like in the 80s, if like my father, my dad, if he would have been listening to Debbie Gibson or Tiffany, that would have been fucking weird.
I
I
know.
mean, like I'd be horrified to this day still. But that's
Yeah.
just the way it was, like you said. I mean, and you're right. Your generation, the '80s kids, who came of age in the '90s, you're the first generation. As adults, you can just, you can do whatever the hell you want. Like my age group, I remember, like, when you're out of high school for a few years, you're like 21, 22, you're wearing a Motley Crue shirt, and you run into a girl you knew from high school. This is like when you're 21. She's like, you're still wearing the heavy metal shirts. I figured you would own, like, because back then it was the thing. Like, once you were not a teenager, you get a haircut, you don't wear metal shirts, you don't wear a metal, MC jacket. So there was this notion that, like, you're a grown man now.
Put this shit away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
ironically, I know
sorry,
you
say
want
what
to
you're
move.
saying.
I just gotta finish one thought about this. It's funny that these women who back in the day said to me, you're still wearing the heavy metal shirt. Now I'll see them on Facebook, like 45, 49-year-old women with the dog face filter. I mean, come on, really?
No, it's true, and no, it's really, and it's so sometimes I'm I'll have people, I'll watch wrestling with other people, and I complain about it, but they're going on and on and on, and I have to say, this show's not for us; it's for little kids, and we're the idiots for watching it. And I'm not an idiot, and they don't get it. They get mad when you say that. I remember Mike Lawrence made a status like that, and a bunch of wrestling fans got livid at him, like, "This is for me. I put money in. I buy tickets. I buy. Me. I wear a lot of wrestling shirts on stage, but I know
Right.
that I am, you know." Listen, I could buy a lot of Teletubby shirts on stage. That don't mean they should change the show to cater to me. You know what I mean?
Man, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Adult, yeah, it's weird. But now I want to get to why I had you in the podcast. I whenever I watch an early '80s sitcom or a TV show, I think a lot about you. I know that's your era, and I'm trying to have a different comic every week for a Disney film. And I never saw Monster University until this summer, and I love the first Monsters Inc. I think it's one of the Billy Prinzel did an episode, and I thought it was one of the best movies I ever watched. But I'm watching this movie, and I really kind of felt, and I want to see if you agree, that it was like a kid-friendly love letter to the '80s comedies, whether it was fucking Ferris Bueller or Animal House or Hot Dog. I kind of felt like this movie was like their Disney's tribute to that era of films, but in their own way. And this movie reminded me a lot of you. So when it came to a comic from Monsters University, I said I really want comedy. Pete, you saw the movie yesterday or the past couple days. What'd you think about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just realized that we just like boom got right into this podcast. I never got a chance to say thank you for having me on.
Oh,
It's an
no
honor.
problem, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So moving ahead, I started watching it, and at first, I mean, I've seen some Pixar movies in recent years. I have niece and nephews when they
Yeah.
come to visit. My sister wants a few hours of peace and quiet. Oh, Uncle Pete, what? You want to take the kids to go see a movie? I get probably pushed out the door to take it. So I've seen, but I mean, Monsters Inc. I've seen parts of that, but I did watch Monsters University. As was the subject of this appearance here, and I enjoyed it. I mean, like you said, it's got the feel, the flavor of like that, like you said, that late '70s Animal House kind of vibe, '80s kind of like
Porky's.
dude reference, with
Yeah.
Sully and all that, and of course the voices, and the guys from the original. You got John Goodman, Billy Crystal. I mean, this is a little obscure reference, but Wazowski, as voiced by Billy Crystal, it sounds to me a little, and I say this respectfully, it sounds a little like Dan Natterman, don't you think? That's a like a known comedian.
Well, it's so funny because in this movie, that I can tell Billy Crystal and John Goodman are trying to sound younger because this is like their teen versions, and it's so weird. Billy Crystal being Billy Crystal, but trying to sound like he's an 18-year-old kid. It was really funny what he was doing. It worked in a way, but another way, it's like, dude, I know you're old. I know you're old now. It's okay, I'm willing to suspend belief that you're a college kid. What were you gonna say?
So funny you say that, Ray, because I'm watching this and I'm listening to Crystal's voice, and I'm like, he sounds like he's trying to sound younger, or is this how Billy Crystal sounds, but without his face? I was really really trying to figure out. But yeah, you're right. That was him. That was Billy Crystal's interpretation of a younger guy.
Younger Billy Crystal.
Goodman, he just kind of had his older rasp. He didn't even try. He was great, but he didn't try too hard to sound young. But yeah, the movie was really like nice and like I got pulled into it. First I was watching, I was like, oh man, it's a long movie, an hour and 50 minutes. I was like, I hope I like this because I'm committed. I'm watching this no matter what. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. Obviously the story of the little guy who desperately wants to be something, but maybe doesn't quite possess the qualities that it takes to be that. In this case, to be scary.
A scarer. Yeah.
Scare. I mean, you read the description in the wiki, and they scare children at night so they can harvest their screams for energy. I'm like, yikes! It sounds a little too close to adrenochrome. Sorry, I know that.
Well, the funny thing is, Monsters Inc. The whole plot of Monsters Inc. is this takes place like years after this movie. They find out that children's laughter is more potent than their screams. So these two, Mike and Scully, have to convince the whole world that we got to do laughter. We got to become comedians and make kids laugh and not scare them. And it's hard because the world is like set in their ways. So when they announced this movie, I'm like, well, I already know that they're going down the wrong path in life by scaring kids. So how are they going to make me root for these characters to go down the wrong path? And I think they did a great job,
Yeah, I mean, I guess the moral of the story was, what's the name? Hardscrabble. She recognized, this is the dean for those who didn't see the movie. The dean of the university there. She recognized that like you said, like Mike and Sully, like they didn't quite have it, especially Mike, but he possessed like other great qualities that like made such a big name for himself, and got a whole a whole thing going. So you had to admire his heart, his commitment. You had to admire that he got he turned a group of unlikely misfits, the okay, turn them into at least contenders at the very least, and
Yes.
yeah,
Real quick, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I'm going to give a quick plot summary. So this takes place years before Monsters Inc. Mike Wazowski on a field trip visits Monsters Inc., loves it, actually goes inside a room with one of the scarers, sees a human child, decides he wants to be a scarer. We cut to him entering Monsters University. He has no friends, but he just studies and studies and studies. And then at his finale, when he gets his final, he argues with Sully, who is the main character in Monsters Inc. They both get kicked out of the scare program. They have to enter a competition. They have to start their own fraternity with a bunch of losers who live with their mom. And they almost win, but then it turns out that Sully cheated. He rigged the machine. And then Mike goes to prove that he can actually scare kids, breaks into the real world at a summer camp. Sully has to chase after him. And now this I thought was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. So, and I want to see what you thought of this scene because I loved it. Because again, it's almost like, so we've learned that the scaring is not in the first movie. Scaring's not good. You shouldn't scare people. But now in the prequel, in order for them to get out, they got to scare these humans. They got to scare these cops, these grown ass men. And it was such a thrill to watching a horror scene unfold where the monsters are more scared of the humans, but they have to do all the horror movie tropes to freak them out. I love that scene in the cabin. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It was an interesting. I'm going to use a fancy word now. Interesting juxtaposition.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And not that I was ever thinking about this, but it does make if you were to think about it, like, oh, I guess movie, scary characters in movies, they can be scared too.
Yeah, like
it's a revelation.
You always watch these horror movies like the like Paranormal Activity or what have you, and you always think that the ghost, they always act like the ghost is complete control. The ghost is like just sitting there. But what if the ghost is like, get the fuck out of this house? What's going on? Like, what if the ghost is freaked out? That's why he's acting so weird because he's like, what the fuck?
The ghost almost has a right to be at the.
Yeah, the ghost can't call the cops or he's a ghost, so he's like fucking.
Yeah, I gotta do this myself.
Yeah, sorry, I'll throw this book. Nah, then they get rid of them. I'll throw this bookcase. Shit, what do I do? He can't go on his phone and go to Google and be like, hey, Google, how do I get rid of humans?
Yeah.
So, I mean.
But yeah, that was a key pivotal scene. And yeah, that was cool. I like that. That was,
that was
like
a lot of fun. So,
scene twist.
They get back into the monsters world. They get expelled from the school, but then they find that there's a job opening at the mailroom at Monsters Inc. And then we essentially go back to right where we started. They work up the ranks in Monsters Inc. and they become scarers. And I guess away you go into Monsters Inc.
We forgot to say spoiler alert.
Oh, spoiler alert! Yes.
Yeah.
I like to get, but I really like them. At first, I was weird with the message of the movie because I know, if you've seen Monsters Inc., this guy is just basically the sidekick. He's like the technician, and Scully is the star. Sully is the star. So I was like, is this movie going to teach kids like don't try or something, or like don't follow your dreams? Like, what is this movie going to teach? Because I know he's going to fail at this. But I like the fact that it's like you can still pursue your dream, but sometimes you have to like alter it a little, like he still got to work at Monsters Inc., but he's an assistant. He's not a main scarer, and I think that I think that's a nice lesson.
Yeah, I mean there is an interesting lesson there, Ray. I mean, because the traditional trite thing with that would be that all of a sudden Mike suddenly can become scary. Just he willed it. But this movie is like, I guess, took a realistic notion, which is, no matter how bad you want something, maybe you're just not good at it. Like you know, and I would love to be a pitcher for the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
But can I throw a 100-mile-per-hour fastball? No, and I mean, obviously not now anymore. But when I was young, I just didn't. I didn't possess that,
Yeah.
and so there was never a universe where I was going to will myself to hurl heat like a major league pitcher.
But
So
you
it is interesting that they tell you that that they tell kids that, like, okay, maybe you not cut out for a certain thing, but you have great your attributes for other things,
mhm. And
and
you know
don't
what?
underestimate it.
At the same time, like let's say your goal was to work in baseball. All right, maybe you
Yeah,
can't be the starting pitcher for the Mets, but maybe you could have coached little league. Maybe you could have started a pee wee league. Maybe you
yeah,
could have worked in the office, been a
yeah,
general manager, done the contracts, done sports agencies. There's still many ways for you to be involved in baseball if that was your passion as a kid, but your
yeah,
passion was a Motley Crue. No, I'm joking. But
yeah.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
I
it's not the
wasn't
end of the
that.
world if you
Yeah.
can't throw the ball as good as Jose. Does Jose Canseco throw balls? I don't even know. What the fuck did he play?
Wow, wasn't he like a hitter?
I get it.
I don't.
Okay, maybe he can't
Yeah,
swing the bat like Jose Canseco, but that's not the end of the road, And I think that's what
yeah,
Monster University shows us.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So I mean, like I said, it doesn't go for the trite cliche, happy ending.
Yeah,
It is a happy end. It is a happy ending, but
but
like
he
you
has to
said,
work his ass off to get to his happy ending. He doesn't just get
yeah,
it handed to him.
right, yeah,
He had to work hard in college. He has to win the contest, and then he had to fucking basically bust his ass at his job. He had to work in the mailroom. He had to work. He had to work and you can apply that for comedy. Except sometimes in comedy, you just keep working in the mailroom. No matter how funny you are, you're in the fucking mail. No, anyway.
oh my god,
Hey,
yeah. I
Sully's a
mean,
great scare. Why is he in the mailroom? It's 14 years later. It is what it is. He's banned. Okay, fine.
this got personal.
No, I'm joking. I'm fucking around. But no, I liked it. What was your favorite character in the little fraternity they had? Who was your favorite character out of all those the newer characters in that fraternity? Did you have a favorite
Well,
character?
I just watched this, so I don't remember the name, but
I don't remember the
the
names either, so you just describe them. Yeah.
with the big mustache who gets married to the
Oh
to
yes,
the
he was funny.
to the mother with the eyes, who's the mother of the kid with the multiple eyes. Yeah, I
Yes,
liked him.
I
Yeah,
liked him, and I liked his son.
yeah. Well, that was like became his like stepson, right at the end.
Yes, yeah, I liked
Yeah,
him. I
that was
liked
funny.
his son is the guy who played him is Joel Murray, who's, as we know, Bill Murray's brother.
Oh, yeah, I thought I recognized that
Yeah,
voice.
Joel Murray plays him. Um,
Huh.
have you been to the? I don't know if you ever have you been to Chicago lately? Obviously not this year, but have you been to Chicago recently?
Uh, no, no. It's on my to do
I
list.
went
When
to the Murray's restaurant. They have a restaurant, the Bill Murray and his
oh,
brothers. I went there. It's in Chicago. It
yeah,
was really good. It was at a horror convention, and it was
yeah.
right next door to the horror convention. And if one of the first time I never eat alone at a restaurant. Probably the
Ooh,
last time I eat alone at a restaurant because they're all going to close. But I it was really good food, and they have all Caddyshack memorabilia all over the restaurant.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely gonna be my stop, because it was Bill Murray's brother. That was that was based on his experiences as a caddy, in the
Yeah.
'60s. Yeah.
Yeah, so all the brothers own that restaurant, so that's pretty good. I liked it. I would watch a sitcom if Disney Plus wants to do this because I know they're making a lot of TV shows off their movies. A
Yeah.
sitcom about that family living on the mom, the dad, and the kid, and like that would be a fun CGI sitcom to put on. I think
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
possibilities there.
big, huge family, kind of rough and tumble guys,
Yeah.
um,
Well, the dad's like this older nerd, and the kid's like, dad, and I don't know. I think it's be kind of
yeah.
fun. What was your favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scene. I mean, I just like the overall look. I mean, it was
Oh, the look
really
was incredible. Fantastic.
Yeah, really well done. I mean, when they walk into like the university, I mean, some of the halls, I mean, it's just like, you know,
There's just
almost
so
look.
much. There's so much to take in every single scene. You're like, I can't believe the amount of work they put into this. Like, just
Yeah.
all you look around, like characters walking in the background of the college campus. You're like, it's just incredible what they've done. How far they have advanced with animation.
Oh yeah. It's funny. But before I talk about my favorite scene, I'm watching this. I'm thinking like, you know, I guess maybe I should feel like cheated that I didn't have this incredible type of animation when I was a kid, but I don't feel that way.
No, I don't feel that way. No,
Yeah.
I feel like I enjoy. I feel like this movie. I get more enjoyment out of this movie in my 30s than I would have in my early when I was like a little kid. I feel like I had the right movies for me as a little kid. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah. No,
glad. I'm glad I grew up on stuff like Rocky and Back to the Future.
yes,
You
yes.
know.
But my favorite scene, Ray, I would say, it was the final, the competition scene where
Yes.
we find out, again, spoiler alert for this part of the scene, where they obviously find out that Sully kind of rigged
Hmm.
the thing a little. But I like, the excitement, the huge look of the whole thing, and the excitement, and I thought that Mike, when he, that final time, like, this guy, I was like, oh, he did it, like, it's
Yeah.
like, it's not super scary, but I thought he kind of finally, that was the point of the movie. It was like, oh, he fucking did it,
Yeah.
but I guess it was like, well, close but no cigar, because obviously you found out that it was tampered with a little and it wasn't a legit win. So yeah, and then this is gonna sound weird, Ray, but I'm thinking to myself like, what would make Mike scary? And I know this is a stupid thing I was thinking while I was watching. I was like, if he can't scare him with the or just he's got the character with one eye, just stand there and just like stare at
Oh,
just
that would be
stare
creepy. If I
silently at
woke
the
up and
kid
there's just a giant eye, I would
staring.
I would have been really scared. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my take. I was like, that's what he should do. Just stand there completely still, just creepily, silently staring at a kid until the kid wakes up and then shits his pants because, this got this, like,
that would that would be, or like, I don't know, lick the kid. That'd be could creep me out if I woke up and some eye was licking me. I'd still be in therapy. You kidding me?
yeah, yeah.
Now
There
we're
would have been
getting
a hole in the wall in my room, from me breaking through it,
yeah.
running so fast.
I'm sure, like Disney, if you pitch this at Pixar, like, all right, we're not trying to disturb people here. Like, let's just, like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, there's a lot of ways you could scare kids, not just going, "Arr!" Like, that's like, well, that's old school. You want to
yeah.
scare me? Fucking show me the COVID rates. That'll be, show me the. Look at this. You're never going
Hey,
back to comedy.
hey, hey, kids are dying from COVID now too. You
Yeah.
know.
Hey, you see
My
these death rates? Fucking have Jeffrey Epstein pull up in a plane. That'll scare the guy. Ah! Get me out of here.
Yeah, many alternatives.
My favorite scene was, again, I said, was the scene with the cops, because
Mm,
especially I'm such a fan of the first movie, and it was like taking this thing that I know, a thing that they established that was bad in the first movie, and now he's got to use it. He's got to use it to get out of this situation, and he's got to be really fucking good at it. And I
yeah,
was wondering, how are they going to establish this guy's good at scaring without him like just scaring the shit out of kids? And the fact that they had him have to do it to adults, and he scared the adults so bad that basically, a gateway to another world opened. I thought that was excellent. The fact that, like, he proved that he could do it, but he didn't have to, like, fuck over kids to do it. He got to fuck over adults. So who gives a shit about adults?
it's true. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that too. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely definitely a good one there too, for
So
sure.
let me ask you this. It's on topic, kind of off topic, but I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
What those there was a very weird period in time, and not weird, but a very brief period in time where there was like a lot of like teen sex comedies where it
Yeah,
was young kids coming of age, everyone's having sex, there's titties everywhere, and kind of like
yeah,
after the Breakfast Club, that kind of died out, and then you got like more cerebral films like Some Kind of Wonderful, and
right.
Pretty in Pink, where it's still about dating and stuff, but Molly Ringwald doesn't have her tits bouncing up and down while she's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Of those are like I'm talking shit like Hot Dog and Ski with Hard Bodies. Of those early '80s comedies, which was your favorite? Which one do you think is like one of the funniest?
Well, I mean,
Because
yeah, you're
also
right.
I think those early, though I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the reason why I think those early '80s movies, those titties and college kids, and I think they got a lot of inspiration for that movie from this, but they just took out the titties and they took out the fucking and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, when they showed like the frat party scene, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
they're like stuffing their face with like cake or whatever, but this is like supposed to be beer and
Yeah, yeah,
whatever else.
yeah.
So it's like, you're right. I mean, for people who are a little bit older and remember a certain genre, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of read between the lines, and so it's interesting how they did that. Kind of, they did convey a little of that.
A little of the Porkies, a little bit of the hot dog kind of
Yeah,
atmosphere.
hot dog Porkies, with the gratuitous, topless scenes and like, the sex scenes and stuff like that. Not that it was in this movie, Monsters University, but yeah, there was a slight, like it was in the air, so to speak, like
Mhm.
and you're right, and but that was interesting. Like that was like like you say, like the early to mid '80s. And people say that Animal House kind of kicked off that genre, even
Yes.
though it wasn't that extreme. But Porky's, I think, was like the ultimate, raunchy. I mean, it took place in the '50s, but the raunchy, like '80s, gratuitous sex
Sex
comedy.
teen romp. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I mean, I guess in some ways you could say it's an awful movie, but I love it. Porky's. I mean, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's funny. I was just watching an interview with Judge Reinhold, and he was saying that when they all there was a bunch of young talented actors who signed on to do this movie based on the book from Cameron Crowe, and they thought this was going to be like like a character study of high school kids. Like they didn't realize that they were signing on for like a Porky's kind of Animal House element to it. And
Yeah.
Reinhold says, he goes, I love Animal House, but don't get me wrong, but he's like, the gratuitous topless scene, Phoebe Cates ripping the open shirt and kind of the tacky sex jokes. They were a little put off by that because that's not what they thought they were doing. And then it's funny, Ray, like I remember you're right that by the late '80s it got a little more intelligent. The John Hughes films were a little more depth to the teen comedy, and then in the '90s it turned into a whole different thing. But I remember obviously when American Pie came out, that was what, '99, I think.
Yes.
1999. Yeah,
It kind of came back in American Pie a little bit. Yes. I remember that.
at the time it was kind of like, it was almost like there was a little bit of a celebration, like, oh fuck yeah, like a good old fashioned, dirty R-rated teen comedy is back. I mean, yeah, it was a little not as extreme as Porky's and Hot Dog and all this stuff, but it's just funny that, like, we talked today about how everything's so politically correct and blah blah blah, and and I'm thinking, like, but I mean, this has been going on so long. Like, I mean, it's been going on so long that even way back in 1999, at that time, it was like a big deal that, like, oh, somebody was doing something with a little edge,
Well, I remember
again.
like they said, what's her name got naked, Shannon Elizabeth, and I was like, kids don't get, teenagers don't get naked in movies anymore. Like they just didn't do that anymore. And the fact that she was naked and it was jerking off to her was like, wow, it was such a throwback, but in a refreshing way. That movie's a good movie. That was the first DVD I ever bought.
Really?
I
Wow.
bought. I mean, I bought VHSs my whole life, but that was when I got to a DVD player. First one I grabbed.
Oh wow! You
Mhm.
still have all your VHS tapes? Yeah, you got them all.
I have some. I didn't have any. DVDs was such an upgrade. I didn't have any like nostalgia. Now I have nostalgia review. I wish I kept a bunch of them
Yeah,
more, but
for
I have
sure.
some. I don't have a ton, but I know people who collect VHS, which to me is so. It's strange. I get it, but it's also strange because it takes up more room, and the picture quality is not good at all. So it's not like you can be like, "This is the way the film was meant to be seen." No, this is the way the film was never meant to be seen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Hmm.
hear you though.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
DVD is like the correct ratio. It's I don't know. It's just I like the people always like, why do you collect DVDs? VHSs are cooler, and I'm like, yeah, they look cooler, but DVDs are the right way to watch a movie. So
no, you're right. You're right. But I get a little. I love my VHS.
so which one was your favorite from the early '80s, the teen movies? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess Porky's as far as like the super run. But my,
Mhm.
my favorite movie from the early '80s is without a doubt it's Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh yeah, yes. So you can
I
put that
mean,
in the same category as those films. Yes.
you could. I mean, it's not totally. You're right, Ray. It's
Mhm.
not totally like, but but it has elements of those movies, and yeah, that's my favorite from
It,
that time period.
that is such a good movie. The music is amazing. All the perform. I'm surprised there was never a part two. I'm surprised like we didn't see like two or three or something.
Yeah. Well, there was do you know that there was a short-lived sitcom? It was
Yes, yeah. I think I saw the pilot once on a thing, and I was like,
yeah,
"Ugh."
yeah. Dean Cameron. Was it Dean? Yeah, Dean Cameron from Summer School. He plays Macaulay, and I think what's the name? Courtney Thorne Smith is that? I think she in it. She might have been in it. I think I
She
think she
was on
played.
Melrose Place too, right?
Yeah. And Mr. Hand, Ray Walston, he reprised his role as Mr. Hand. But like I said, it didn't. I mean, you know how bad a show's got to be, and when it's like Fast Times, are and it's the mid '80s. It's called Fast Times, and the youth of the time are like, no thanks. Yeah,
Well, a lot of they did try to turn a lot of. I mean, I think they tried to turn Dirty Dancing into a TV show, and a
did they?
lot of when they tried to do that, they like really went low budget. So it's almost like, look, this not only is this not like the movie. I don't know what the fuck this is like. Like the Ferris Bueller TV show was very cheap looking.
Yeah. Wow, I remember that. And then there was like Parker Lewis Can't Lose. That was sort of like a Ferris Bueller type thing too,
Yes,
eh?
but that was at least it was the original character, so people were more into
True.
that.
Yeah. No, I
Than,
like that.
oh, I
So,
love Parker Lewis can't lose. I still think he can't lose. So
yeah.
fucking, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Co-
Yeah.
so overall comedy, Pete, would you recommend Monsters University? Do you think parents should show it to their kids?
I would. I would recommend it to anybody of any age. Obviously, I mean, what would you say for someone who hasn't seen either movie, Monsters Inc. or Monsters University? I know University is a prequel,
Hmm.
put out at a later date. Would you recommend
Oh,
seeing one before?
yeah, I would recommend. I would recommend showing either one to kids nowadays. I think both are tremendous. It's a great series. Uh, this one has different lessons than the first one, but
Yeah.
it is such a fun movie. I put it on and like so I did Brave last week with Catherine Henson, and I could barely pay attention to Brave. It's not that good of a movie. And this one I put on last night. I'm like, all right, I kind of got the gist of it, but I'm gonna watch it, take notes, and I fully got into it again, man. Like I fully was like, I put down my phone and I was into this movie,
Yeah.
and it really is a good, solid film. It's not just good for an animated film or good for a kids film. It's just a good film, I think. Monsters
No,
University.
Ray, you're right. It's actually got a legit good story.
Hmm.
Um, and I would think anybody could enjoy it. It's not you'd be kind of missing out if you just say, oh, that's a children's movie, that's not for me. Like you would like it if
Yeah,
anybody. Yeah. So
it's
yeah,
a.
I recommend it. And yeah, no, but what I was asking before, Ray, was
Mhm.
like for people who haven't seen either movie, Monsters Inc.
Oh,
Does it matter which one they see first now?
only reason I would say watch Monsters Inc. before Monsters University is I feel like the technology leap from Inc. to University is so huge that I feel like if you watch University first, you go to Ink, you're gonna notice the animation isn't as good. It might distract you
I
because
get you.
I like Toy Story 1 a lot, but CG old this is the weird thing. So old hand-drawn animation, there's still a beauty to it. I can watch the black and white Popeyes, I can watch the black and white Bugs Bunny, and there's an
Right.
artistry and a beauty to them that I really love. But old like early generation CGI films do not age well at all. That animation advances so much every year that
hmm
some of that stuff. So like I like Toy Story 1, but the animation is very rough now. And you have to give them credit. I mean, they were doing shit like in '95 that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
And Monsters Inc. still has good animation, but this movie is just so much more beautiful. So I would say watch Monsters Inc. then this.
Gotcha. And I see what you mean. Like the Pixar CGI stuff was in its infancy at the time. But then again, like you said, so were the early black and white Popeyes and stuff. But they just somehow
I just think you can't
hold up.
match. You can't. As much as I like CGI, and as much as I think a movie like this is beautiful, I think
Yeah.
hand drawn animation you can't match it. There's
Yeah.
some magic to it. There's a beauty to it. It doesn't matter how some of these CGI films like are just gorgeous looking. Like this movie is gorgeous to look at. I could pause it and I have a picture. I have a painting in my TV every time I pause this movie. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
there's just something more beautiful about hand drawn animation. Like there's something timeless about a Bugs Bunny cartoon or a Mickey Mouse cartoon or Cinderella or
Yeah.
or the Three Stooges. Fuck that cartoon. There's something timeless about these cartoons. It's the artistry, the hand drawn animation. It's timeless. Yeah.
No, I totally agree, Ray.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Comedy Pete, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me, folks, on Instagram. I do a nightly show at Comedy Pete Live. Very easy, Comedy Pete Live. Can I plug the two people I have this week?
Yeah. Well, this podcast is coming out in 2 weeks. I
Okay.
record ahead of time, but feel free to if you want to mention them, feel free to mention them. So.
Well, it'll be so past by that. So I'll leave it at that. I always have interesting guests every night. I've had Ray Gootz on. I have a lot of great comedians from the New York comedy scene, and I had Debbie Gibson on.
Yeah, Debbie
earlier.
Gibson. That was huge.
Yeah, that was a big deal. That was.
And she still looked great.
Oh yeah, she's in some ways she looks to me like the best she's ever looked.
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
That was really nice that she did that for you. I thought that was so cool. She looked great. It was such a fun conversation between the two of you. Really, one of the highlights of quarantine was watching you interview Debbie Gibson. So,
well, I'm glad at a time like this, if I can make anybody's quarantine,
yeah,
just the sound of that. If I can make anyone's quarantine a tiny little bit better, then my mission is accomplished.
have you done any in-person shows the past few months, or not really?
Well, I've gotten the pleasure to do your show.
Thank you, buddy.
Outdoor show in Astoria. Safe, socially distanced. You do it right, you do it responsibly, and I was honored to be part of that. I mean, like every great, heavy artillery, heavy hitter comic, came through your backyard this summer.
Yeah, it was great.
So, Dustin Chafin and on and on and on. And you have Leah Bonema.
I had Mike Vecchione, Dante Nero. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. So that was a real thrill. And I know you got to wrap up, but are you resuming that? Are you resuming that again in the spring?
Yeah, I'm playing it by ear. Right now they still have the rulings. I heard a rumor that apparently they're going to start handing out permits for people to do outdoor comedy shows legally in front of their restaurants and bars. That you can apply for permits to do outside music shows or what have you. I'll believe. I haven't heard anything officially. I haven't seen any news report about that, so I'll believe when I see it. But the moment. I got to be honest, this winter, the weather hasn't been that bad. I think I could have been doing outdoor shows up until today,
Probably, yeah. I would agree with that. It's been a somewhat mild winter.
It's been a very mild winter. Every day I go, like right now, the sun is out and it looks nice out. And I went to the post office where we did this and it was very nice out. So what I would say is Yeah, as soon as the restrictions are lifted and I think the weather's all right, I'm gonna bring it back.
Very cool. And I'll keep my fingers crossed that I get a call.
Yeah, gotta have Comedy Pete at the comedy show. Fuck him.
Yeah. Well,
fuck
your
you.
show is like really popular, so I know that there is a wait, there is a list.
Hey,
So
I always got time for Comedy Pete's.
thanks, man. I appreciate
Guys,
work
if
with
you
the
like,
Goots.
what'd you say?
I said I got to work with the Goots.
Yeah, baby. We used to. Have you been down to McDougal? Comedy Pete was a staple on McDougal Street in front of the Grizzly Pear. Have you been down there? In the
I
fall?
went for the first time. I went in October
Mhm.
for the first time. At that point, was the first time in half a year because obviously we closed down mid March.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to speak for them, but they were 25%. So, they were doing like a small, safe kind of responsible thing. But that was short lived, obviously,
Yeah.
because Cuomo, Governor Cuomo, shut everything down again. But I did pass through McDougal a few times, and the nice thing, Ray, I just gotta say, is besides the comedians, like there's a lot of people who work on that block, and the guy who works at the gift shop, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully, even the homeless guys, like they like lit up when they saw me because
That's
like
great.
not to me, but it's just like, oh, this guy is back in McDougal. It's like a little return to normalcy. So that meant a lot to me that people like were kind of delighted to see Comedy Pete back on McDougal Street. That was
The
cool.
homeless guys were like, finally I can eat again. Comedy Pete's here. Uh, but no, that's fucking great. And hopefully, I got a feeling somebody put a gun to fucking Cuomo's head because last week he changed his fucking tune real fast.
Yeah.
I think the Cosa Nostra hung him out the window. And all right, enough of this. We had enough of it. Now let's get it back. Because
a couple of governors, are reopening, and so someone put it best. It's kind of like what you just said, Ray. Like it's almost like they got orders.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into all the conspiracy bullshit, but I'm just saying it's almost like these governors got orders. Like, okay, we got our man in. We can reopen up. We can reopen up. There's some people think that governors conspired to like wreck the economy so that there was no victory of any sort for Trump and just get him the fuck out.
Well, see, I think in Cuomo's case,
yeah,
I think in Cuomo's case, because I think him and Salem have been sketchy. I think it's the mafios. I think it's the mafios. Like, all right, we have been moving cigarettes for 6 months. Fucking reopen everything.
I never thought of that, but I think you might have just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, because you ever heard the story about Vanilla Ice being dangled out a hotel window by his foot?
I heard that.
I think that was Cuomo over New Year's Eve weekend. Like, he got dangled out a window. All right, enough.
Oh man! Well,
you go to have a rat in the face.
Yeah, whatever happened, and just by the way, I got a little notoriety last week. I don't know if you saw.
Your tweet. Yes, Fox News.
I found out I was in a Fox News article, Fox Business. That was a shock. To be honest with you, Ray, I got a little scared. I was like, oh shit, I kind of threw a big stone at the governor of New York, and I was like on public rec. I got a little scared for a second. I was like, oh shit, I hope this doesn't bite me in the ass, and maybe it's still.
I got a call. I was like, hey, why don't you have Michael Che talk about Monsters University? And I was like, no, like you made a big mistake here, Gootz. You made a powerful enemy.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if the first time I bring my show back and you're on stage, the fucking SWAT team rolls in. We'll know it's a tweet. That goddamn Fox News. Fucking, we're doing. There's 3 people in my backyard. Of fucking guys with machine guns come on. First.
Yeah. Oh man, but I do think that New York's going to slowly reopen, and that comedy this summer, it's not going to be a full swing again. But it's going to be probably a little more than it was last summer. And last summer wasn't bad,
No,
like I said.
I had a great time. I think outdoor comedy's here to stay. I don't know about the clubs, and I'll tell you why. everyone always says to me the argument that everything is like people want to go out, people want to do things. They do. I agree with that 100%. However,
Yeah.
they're gonna be smart about it. They don't have money to go do things. Listen, I want to go fucking bang the most gorgeous stripper in fucking Vegas. I'm not gonna tip her. I don't want to spend $5,000 tipping her. All right, it's just not gonna happen. I think people are gonna do research and they're gonna be like, all right, hey, let's go see a new show in New York Comedy Club. Who's there? No one we know. $18 minimum, $20 cover a person. No fucking way. And they're gonna go find either a free show or a cheap show at a bar or something, because I think people are realizing you can see great comedians pretty much anywhere you want. I mean,
Right.
people like Mark Norman and people like Joe List, they still do bar shows, they still do outdoor shows, and they're gonna keep doing it this summer. And I think the public is learning that.
Yeah, you're right, Ray. I mean, no, somebody said that maybe it was you when you were on my live, but somebody was saying that the days of like a no name lineup are over, because you can't sell a show anymore unless there's somebody that they've heard of.
Yes. Well, when I started at Caroline's, you could book fucking, you could book a fucking sea lion and a clown, and they could juggle, and people would go. Like, well, this must be the best juggling clown sea lion in the world. They're at Caroline's. We gotta go. I think those days are out the fucking window. Now it's got to be like, I don't know these people. I'm not spending that money to go to Caroline's. Oh, Sebastian Nicasco's there, Bill Burr. I'll go to Caroline's. But I'm not. I think those days are out the window, because they're like, well, I could see people I don't know at this park show. I can see people I don't know at this bar show. Why am I going to go spend money? And you know what? People had this idea. Even if someone I don't know, they're at Caroline's, they're at the Cellar, they're at the Strip. It's a higher level. I think that cat's out the bag, because they've been booking bullshit, a lot of these clubs the past few years, and they know it's the same shit wherever you go. So,
oh man, yeah. I mean, I saw a comic. I guess I shouldn't mention his name. I guess I don't have
Billy
the right to do
Crystal.
that. No, yeah. Hey, Billy, as Mikey. No. He posted the other day, on Facebook. He said, only, white male comics over 40 are dying for comedy clubs to come back. And
Yes.
it was funny. I got the joke, but like, and there was an element of, but I was a little offended by that. It's like, because I'm one of them.
Well, I think he was trying to say like that the comedy club is an outdated model. I think that's what he was trying to say.
No, I got that, Ray.
Yeah.
I've had people on my show, on my live, who, especially women, who I'm just saying that as a frame of reference, who their attitude is like, fuck the clubs. They feel that it's an outdated concept, the comedy club. Hey, where are you folks from? And also they feel that it was an unfriendly environment unless you were a white male.
Mhm.
They said if you're a woman, or LGBTQ, whatever, like you never felt comfortable at comedy clubs, because it was very clearly a vibe, like male dominance. Like, if you're not a white dude,
Yeah.
like, those don't belong here. That's so their thing is like death to the clubs. Long live the park shows and the Zoom shows. They're loving this new, kinder, gentler world of comedy.
Atmosphere. Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, like, I always tried to make Caroline's, when I was running my shows, a very warm and inviting atmosphere to everybody, whether you were a new comic or a veteran, because I always would go to other clubs and they wouldn't have that same vibe. Some clubs had this very much like, if you're not in our clique, we don't want to know you. We don't give a fuck how good you did. We don't give a fuck how nice you are. And it made you feel uninvited. And sometimes, sometimes it'd be more depressing. Like, if I was at a club and I killed and the owner wouldn't even look at me, saw I killed and said nothing, that was more depressing than if I fucking bombed. Because it's like, hey man, the audience loves me. I brought the show back and I'm still not getting any like attention from you. Like, well, what the fuck? What the fuck is the point? You know what I mean? Like, why? And it was a very defeatist atmosphere. And I think my thing is, like, I did enjoy a lot of the clubs I performed at, but the way they ran it, it's like, and the way they were like, you should be grateful that I'm putting you on the stage for free. I think people are kind of tired of that attitude, And I think now people are like, you need us. You need us to bring people in. You need us. We don't need you. You're the one whose business is like dangling by a thread, especially when you return.
Yeah.
and we're not going to put up with your bullshit.
The curtain's been lifted back. Everyone,
Yeah,
they see that now.
yeah.
So
It's like, well, it's like, I'm sorry, I just want to go a quick point. Like, if I'm going to do well and not make any money and not go anywhere, am I going to go to the city and do well to make money for some guy, or am I going to do well here in my here in my neighborhood? You know what I'm saying?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think the clubs, and just by the way, my first time at Caroline's, this is way before the March Madness, but you got me my first show at Caroline's, which was like, epic.
Yeah.
And you're right, you do have a very inviting atmosphere, and I recognize that and appreciated that. But in general, clubs, I think when comedy clubs start to open up again, I think they got a challenge. They have to figure out to make it like, this isn't your father's comedy club anymore. This is the new, kinder, gentler comedy
They've
club.
got to make it inviting. They've got to make it a place where people, it can't just be like, this is only good for people who we think are cool. You
Yeah.
got to make it more like enticing to be there. Maybe do like this is gonna sound weird, but if you have a big club like Caroline's, maybe do a night where comics can hang out and play like board games. I don't know. Do something that make people feel like you're part of a community, and this is more than just the place where I go on stage and tell jokes and you growl at me if I do anything else. This is a place where I can feel welcome. This is the magician clubs. The magicians are part of the family. Jazz club, you're part of the family. Comedy clubs, it's like, well, who the fuck is it? What is this a club for? I feel like I feel more of an outsider. I feel more of an outsider, and I'm the guy on stage. How the fuck does the customers feel?
I just got to you just reminded me about something, Ray. One of the earliest things I learned in comedy, I started at a later age, was that, I guess you somehow think, oh, comedies, it's fun. You show up at a comedy club. I mean, the first time I showed up at a comedy club, like you said, in some places there can be a very bad vibe. The booker's in a pissy mood. Comics will like give you this look like, who the fuck are you? So it really knocked the smile off my face and made me nervous and intimidated. And so one of the things I learned quickly was like, don't, comedy club environment is not fun. It's not like, hey, this is a barrel of laughs and we all love each other because we're all brothers and sisters, right? We're all on the same wavelength. It's so I quickly had to tell myself, don't let the bad negative vibe rattle me and throw me.
Mm-hmm.
And it did.
Yeah, no, because on being on stage is a blast. But yeah, there's some clubs have this very negative vibe, and it's like, why do people are going up, people are making money on Zoom, people are doing this, that, and the third. Why do I need that vibe when I could just we can create our own shows and not have that vibe anymore? I mean, sure, there'll be places with that vibe, but it's almost like sub owners and some bookers thrive on negativity and thrive on putting people against each other. And it's like, this is supposed to be fun. We're going on stage, we're telling fart jokes. We're not fucking doing brain surgery. We're not selling stocks and bonds. We're not distributing vaccines. We're not faking an election. This is fun.
On the other hand, though, Ray, I just got to throw in, like I said, I had such a blast doing. I did your show a couple times this summer, the outdoor show. But another thing I had to get used to on an outdoor show. I mean, there's like I said, really nice supportive vibe. But obviously, we perform in the dark, right? So you may have 50 people in a club, but you don't really see them. Mm-hmm. So doing an outdoor show, maybe you only have 10 or 12 people, but when it's broad daylight and you see everybody looking at you, and you see the booker, you in the back or whoever, and you see the other host and the comedian, I got a little nervous just because I'm not used to seeing everybody, all eyes on me. That rattled me. So I got to get used to that. But that's a minor problem,
Yeah, but no, I thought you did great on my two shows. And listen, man, things are changing. I hate to be a cliche. One day at a time, just like that the show.
It's called.
But that's what it is. We just got. Yeah, we just got to take things one day at a time, and as comedy changes, we got to change with it. We can't just be like, oh, I want Governors to reopen and just do shows there. We got to go where it goes.
These are just the facts of life, right?
Hey, there you go. You take the good, you take the bad. You know, Sunday, Monday, happy days. You know, they'll be happy. The
Goodbye,
happy
Grace.
days are here again. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
goodbye, gray skies. Hello, blue.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes you got to look on the bright side. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ray Gootz. If you like this episode, please check out the backlog. We've done every Pixar movie up to this. We've done every Disney film from Snow White to Frozen 2. Next week, we're doing Inside Out with Christina Hutchison from Guys We Fucked, which is going to be a great episode. You can follow me on all types of social media at Ray Gootz and follow the podcast on social media, Goots Disney Pod. Comedy Pete, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Ray Gootz. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
brother.